Hello everyone, Melody here, mom of 4 and our blended family of 6. Welcome to Homeschool Happy Hour. And I think I've made a video like this before, but today I am going to, it's like a response video. There is a fellow secular homeschooler YouTuber who I have done some videos with before. We've talked online. Super nice lady. Her name is Shanna. Her channel is Making Everyday Magic. If you haven't checked her out, please take a second to check her out. She might have some stuff that you love. I think the more the merrier. But today, I would like to make a response to a video that she made recently talking about privilege and how that relates to homeschooling and her very passionate thoughts on that. So if you have any interest in another perspective than the one that she put out there, or if you haven't watched hers and you want to watch this and then go back and watch hers, and let's have a little discussion, because there are definitely some perspectives on this. So let's check it out. All right, a little bit of housekeeping before I go any further. If you are new here, my name is Melody. I have been homeschooling for enough years that I don't remember. Don't remember what year we're in anymore. My oldest homeschooler is done homeschooling. We started her from the beginning. She's homeschooled all the way through. She is currently doing full-time college courses through a program called Running Start that our state offers to high school students. So according to the state, she's still in high school, but we actually have finished all of her homeschool high school level materials prior to her beginning this program. So I consider her just full-time college at this point. My youngest homeschooler is 13 and she is in her 9th grade year, if you're talking grades. If you are not familiar with this channel, this is a secular homeschooling channel, not to be confused with a political leaning one way or another. Being secular just means we don't use religious resources. For a lot of secular channels, they're still religious within their family. For our channel, we are not. We are an agnostic family. We are secular through and through. I started this channel because I felt like there was a lack of voices out there for secular homeschoolers. And actually, Shanna at Making Everyday Magic is one of the channels that I watched before starting my own channel when I decided we need more out there, because Shanna and I are very different. Politically speaking, her family, I believe, is religious of a sort. Don't quote me on that, I could be wrong. But we're just very different. And I think there's a lot of good in that. And I think it's good to have voices from a variety of people, variety of perspectives. So that's why I'm out here. If you hear a tiny little meow, Max has a new friend. If you're new here, Max is my orange cat. He is an orange cat through and through, if you know anything about orange cats. Sometimes he will make his way through my videos. Right now he's mad at me because we brought home a new friend and he hasn't decided if he wants to accept this new friend or not. But they're both in here running around down here. So if you hear little mews, that would be our new guy. I'm calling him Simon Meows. And if he comes through, I'll show him to you because he's adorable. But in the interest of this video not taking a million years, I'm gonna try and stay on topic. I'm gonna try. I'll do my best. I watched a clip from this video. I didn't even know it was a whole video. I just thought it was a short. I've kind of been off the radar, if you will. I've not really been making a lot of videos. Life has been crazy. And I even had not shut down, but I had taken time away from Instagram and that kind of stuff. So I had gotten on Instagram for the first time in I don't know how long. And one of Shauna's little shorts popped up and she was talking about privilege. And so I was like, huh, interesting. She's a very different take on it than I do. And she's very passionate about it. And I've been thinking about getting back into more videos. And in theory, I have some more time available on the horizon. We'll see how that pans out because, yeah, I keep thinking that and then it doesn't happen. But I messaged her and I asked her, I'm like, would you be interested in a dialogue on this subject? Because she was very adamant, I don't want to have an argument. You can't change my mind. And I'm like, hey, I don't want to like have a negative interaction either, but I love points of discussion. And I think this is a great point of discussion. And she said, well, it's actually a clip from a whole video that I did. And so I finally took the time to go and watch that video. I watched it twice. I took some notes. So, sorry, he's distracting me. Oopa. This is the little fur baby distraction that when I look away, are you gonna eat my fingers? He's actually very sweet. Hello. He's purring. But he's bouncing around all over the place right now, and it's really hard to pay attention. Anyway, so I watched the video twice. I took some notes, and I was like, you know, I think it would still be really awesome to get together with her if her and I can coordinate, because we both have crazy schedules and busy lives. So if we can coordinate, I think it would be awesome to do like a discussion video where we can just have a dialogue about this, because I don't know, it's a topic that piques people's interests. It's a topic that piques my interest. If that's something you'd be interested in, maybe watch both of our videos and comment and let me know if that dialogue would be something you'd like to see or hear. In the meantime, I'm just gonna stick with a response video because that's all I have time for right now. Oh, bummer. Now he's in my lap and he wants all my attention. Oh gosh, it's okay. All right, so in the interest of getting through this in some kind of organized fashion, I took notes. My notes are limited to what I could fit on one small whiteboard, but that's okay. Hopefully this will cue my memory for all the points that I wanted to make. To start off, Shanna defined her meaning, which is so important when we have a discussion, because a lot of times we talk about things and come to find that we're talking about two different things, right? And I think in this situation that is somewhat the case, because her definition of privilege does not match my definition of privilege. And so let's take care of that right off the bat, because we're kind of answering two different questions in that sense. And we're just gonna ignore this little doohickey hair that probably is gonna keep popping out whether I want it to or not. A little background. In our house, we are a facts over feelings home. This does not mean we dismiss feelings. This does not mean that feelings are not important or that they don't matter or that we don't give them the attention that they deserve and they need. We all know that there are times when, whether our feelings are rational and factually legitimate or not, they feel very real and they need to be dealt with. And so we do that. But at the end of the day, when we can get ourselves back to baseline and think about something, we try to make our decisions and base our lives on the facts, not necessarily always on the feelings. Does that make sense? Like, our feelings can influence us for sure, but the facts are our baseline. Now, because of that, when it comes to words and definitions, I'm a little bit of a stickler on it. Like, I want a word to mean what it means and use it in the sense that it was meant to be used, not necessarily to adjust its meaning or change its definition to suit my purpose, which is something that I think is becoming more and more commonplace in our society and drives me crazy. But I don't want to make a 30-minute video on that because I could. So hopefully you get my meaning. Her definition of privilege was basically anything that is above the bare minimum, she said, is a privilege. Now, I'm going to read this because I wrote it down. She said, it's not just having food to eat. It is having the food you want to eat. Skip a few things. It is being able to decide to pick up dinner instead of going home. It is having character sheets instead of plain sheets. It is having the flavor of toothpaste that you prefer. Now, that's just a small clip of her definition of privilege. And while I really do appreciate that, and I love that she took the time to share like the perspective that she's coming from, that's not what privilege is. I mean, that could be what her opinion is, and that can be what many people's opinions are, but privilege has a definition. It doesn't need to be redefined unless you're trying to use it differently. Then I guess it's good to define it in that way. But now Max is being an orange cat. But privilege is, I looked it up so I don't get it wrong, because we're talking about being very specific here. So the actual definition of privilege, a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person or group, often unearned. Now, there's a few things in here that I want us to pay attention to. A special right, advantage, or immunity available only to a particular person or group, often unearned. These are really important words within the definition of this. Privilege can be a system of unearned advantages, right? So I'm not one of those people that says like privilege doesn't exist. We all know it exists. I have privilege, you have privilege. There's a level of privilege in all of us. I agree with that. Do I think that this word is getting overused and misused? Yes and yes. Do I think that it is contributing? Do I think that the overuse and misuse of this word is contributing positively or negatively to our social culture? I think it's contributing negatively. I really feel like this is a path that people are going down, a train that people are jumping on, that we need to like abandon ship. Sorry, that's a lot of analogies in one sentence. Work with me here. There are privileges within, like if you think of your life as there's me and my family, and then there's my community, and maybe my larger community, my country, the world, the universe, right? So this ever expanding circle around us. We might use that word privilege as it is defined officially, not as we define it personally. We can apply that word of privilege differently when we're talking about different circles or different levels away from us. Does that make sense? So, gosh, I was trying to think of a really good example that wasn't homeschooling, since this is all going to be talking about homeschooling, but homeschooling is the best one right now because that's what's on my mind. Homeschooling is a great example for this, because homeschooling is not available, legal, or even sometimes in some places heard of in the whole world. Not everyone on this planet has the right to homeschool. There are countries where it is illegal. You cannot do it. So in the sense that compared to the world, do I feel privileged to be able to homeschool? Yes. In the sense that I feel privileged to be an American. I feel privileged to be a citizen of the United States of America, where I have certain rights that people don't have in other countries. But as a citizen of the United States of America, where it is legal to homeschool in all 50 states, I do not see homeschooling as a privilege within that bubble, within that circle, because it is something that is available to everyone. It is something that can be taken advantage of by anyone that desires to do so. Now, we'll talk a little bit more about whether people should or shouldn't later, because Shanna did talk about that in her video about, whether or not people should homeschool. But regardless, it's available. You can do it. Are there things connected to that? Are there choices that have to be made? Are there potentially sacrifices that have to be made? Potentially, yes. It's available. It's legal. You can do it. Nobody can stop you. It is not a privilege. You have the choice. And having that choice is a privilege as a member of this country. Does that make sense? So if we're just looking at the circle of our nation, and that's as far as the circles were going out on that, then I steadfastly disagree with Shanna's conclusion that homeschooling is a privilege. I simply don't think it is, based on the definition of privilege. Now, perhaps based on her personal definition, I could see how she comes to that conclusion, but that goes back to what I said in the beginning. We don't get to define our own words. Words have definitions for a reason, so that we can all work off that same baseline. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, there are some things in her video, like she talked about, she said she feels privileged because she's white. She feels privileged because of the spouse that she has. She feels privileged because of the area that she lives in. She strongly believes in pretty privilege. She talked about all these different kinds of privilege. And this is another area in which it's more of like a political difference, right? Because she is clearly very liberal. I don't know what political party she aligns with. She may have mentioned it at some point in time. I don't remember. I'm not particularly liberal in my politics. I'm a libertarian, which some people think is liberal, but based on current definitions, it's not. But at this point in time, where we stand in our country, now, I don't see being white as a privilege. Has it been a privilege in our past? Yes. I'm not blind to that. I know my history. Yes. That's not where we're at anymore. As a white person, as a woman, there is nothing accessible to me, available to me, that is not available to a person with a different ethnicity. There's not. I don't necessarily know that we can say our spouse is a privilege, because, I mean, you choose your spouse. That seems like a weird one to me to consider a privilege. I love my husband. He's amazing. I feel lucky to have him. If I could clone him, I would share him because he is the world's best man. I kid you not. But obviously, there are other good men out there. There are other good spouses out there. It's not like I'm privileged because I'm the only one that got this man in my life. Does that make sense? Now, there are a couple things that I agree with her on. She talked about like upbringing being a privilege and pretty privilege. And I agree-ish. I think when we have an upbringing that provides us with advantages that were not available to other people. Not available to other people. These are key words here, guys. And not just other people as individuals, but other people as larger groups, right? So like if I grew up and my dad was a multimillionaire, I was privileged. Like having a parent that is a multimillionaire is not something that is available to the masses. It's not something I can impact by my choices. It's not something that I can just change or that I earned. Does that make sense? It is an unearned special advantage that I have, which by definition makes it a privilege. However, our upbringing does not define our future. Now, she talked in her video, she's like, if you had a hard upbringing, these aren't exact words, but she's basically, if you had it hard in life earlier, now you don't, like, too bad, that doesn't mean you're not privileged. Or that doesn't mean that homeschooling isn't a privilege. And on this part, I would disagree, because one of the key words in something being a privilege is that it is unearned. So if I am a multimillionaire, which that would be fabulous. I'd love that, but it's never gonna happen. It's not in the cards for me, not gonna happen. Mostly because I don't care enough to put the effort into making that happen. But if I were a multimillionaire, or if I was just an upper class citizen, oh, I don't know if you can hear my vacuum cleaning itself out, then would that be a privilege? Maybe, maybe not. The question is, am I in that situation because it was handed to me and therefore it was unearned? Or did I work my way into that and I earned it? These are keywords, people. If it is unearned, then by definition, it is a privilege. If I worked my tail feathers off and I earned it, it is not a privilege now. It is something that I earned, which means someone else could have also earned it. Therefore, it's not a privilege because it was available to other people. I know there are people that are going to be upset about this. I know there are people that are going to disagree strongly with me on this. I know that this take on privilege is not the current popular take. I get that. I recently posted a short that was just like right after Charlie Kirk was killed, basically saying, I had a quote from him on there, that's it, and just said like, we need to teach our children to be able to have back and forth conversations. That was it. I lost a ton of subscribers because I quoted Charlie Kirk, because for some reason, people think that if you're secular, you're liberal, and people think that if you're liberal, you can't support anyone that you would disagree with on anything, because if there's one thing about them you disagree with, you have to disagree with everything about them. Now, this is totally a side note, so I'm sorry about the spiderweb here. I am not necessarily a follower of Charlie Kirk. He's a very religious man. I am not a religious person. I do not agree with all the things he said. But the quote that I quoted him on, basically saying that we need to encourage conversations between people, because when we stop talking, that's when violence happens. I agree with that. And it does not compute for me how that's disagreeable in any way. And that's another reason why I'm making this video. I think probably the people that would get most offended by this video probably already unsubscribed and aren't watching anymore. And maybe other people will be really offended. And Shanna did say in her video, she was like, I'm not gonna argue with you. I'm not interested in debating this. And she was very passionate about it. And it was all good and fine. She's welcome to be passionate about it until we got sort of to the end. And then I was like, okay, well, now you're not just being passionate about it. Now you're being judgmental and mean. I'm really sorry to have to say that, but that's how it wrapped up in the end. And the reason why I'm saying that, okay, so I have to look at my notes on this because this is an important one. She talked about how if you don't acknowledge the privilege, you can't have gratitude. Now that to me is categorically false. I can have gratitude for a lot of things without saying that it is an unearned advantage that I have over other people. You don't have to have one for the other. I believe the word I'm looking for here is false dichotomy. Those are not inextricably linked. You can have one without the other. The other thing that she was saying is that if we don't acknowledge our privilege, that we're burdening our children. She said, when you don't acknowledge the privilege, or when you don't view this, and by this meaning like her perspective on privilege, she was basically saying if we don't view this the same as her, that we're wrong and that it's bad for our kids. And that's where I got lost, because I was like, there's so many different perspectives in the world, and I have a different perspective than Shanna on this one, but I don't see her as bad. Do I think she's incorrect? For sure, but that's just my opinion. I don't think she's bad. I don't think she's doing anything bad to her kids or for her kids. From what I've seen from her, she seems very passionate about homeschooling. She seems that she's really put a lot of thought and effort and time into how she raises her children. And I respect that and I appreciate that. And I think that's amazing. She doesn't have to agree with me to be right. And the end of her video really felt like, now correct me, Shanna, if you watch this and I'm totally wrong about that and I misread that, then please correct me. I'm open to a correction here. I'm just telling you how that felt. And I know I started with facts over feelings, so if my facts are wrong, fix it for me, tell me, redirect me. But it felt very much like an attack. Like if you don't view this the way that I view it, if you don't acknowledge your privilege, you are burdening your children. You are not teaching them gratitude. You are giving them and yourself this huge disadvantage because you're not acknowledging your privilege. And I don't see it the same way. So these blanket statements about what I or other people that would agree with me are doing by not agreeing with you on this one point seem misplaced. It seems like an overgeneralization, if you will. It's like, there's a word for it. I can't remember what it is right now, but it's like, I'll come back around to it. Basically, when you're viewing the world through your own lens and your own perspective, then making judgments on other people based on your perspective and not more of an overarching worldview, which is kind of the opposite of the political leaning that I usually see on that channel. I don't know. Sorry if I lost you guys. I'm gonna come around. I promise. We're getting there. She asked a couple questions at the end of her video, and I wanted to answer them. I put them notes on here, and I want to make sure that I answer them in whole. Her questions were, what are you doing and what is it? And it was in regards to homeschooling. If homeschooling is not a privilege, what are you doing? And she was framing it in that if it's not a privilege, then it must be a burden, that false dichotomy that I talked about earlier. And the problem is I can't answer the question the way it's intended because I don't believe that homeschooling is a burden. I think it takes effort. I think it takes work. I think that it's available to anybody who wants to take that path. Therefore, it's not a privilege. What am I doing? I am making the choices that I feel are best for my family. And I am allocating and using the resources that I have in the best way that I can to make that happen. Now, I know people that are single parents that work full-time that homeschool their children. They have a roof over their head, they have food, but they are making it paycheck to paycheck, and they are doing the best they can for their children. And it is not my job or anyone else's to tell them whether or not they should do that. We don't get to dictate whether or not other people should make that choice. It's theirs to make. I think as homeschoolers, we need to find ways to support each other. I think that there is a danger. I don't know that danger is the right word here. I think that might be a little bit too, I don't know if it's dangerous, but I think we're misguided maybe if we encourage or promote this idea that homeschooling is only for certain people. It's not. Homeschooling is for whoever wants to homeschool. Homeschooling is available. In my opinion, if you've watched my other videos, it is potentially the best form of education available for our children if a parent is invested in doing it with effort, with grace, with love, with self-awareness, all of those things. But none of those things require a certain paycheck. Nobody gets to tell someone else what the line is on when or when they shouldn't homeschool. And I could sit here and I could talk about, well, my past and the choices that I've made and but that is based on me and my experience. I'm trying to make a more general statement here. I think a lot of times the people that shout privilege for homeschooling the most are the people that are maybe privileged in other ways. Maybe not. I could be wrong on that. As homeschoolers, just like anyone else, we can definitely have privileges. We could have financial privileges. Maybe we've never struggled financially and our parents were wealthy and we started off having them pay for college for us. And so we didn't end up with debt. And those are privileges that are not available to every person, right? They're not not broadly available. Therefore, it would be a privilege within whatever bubble we're talking about in that moment. And I think sometimes we take that privilege and we're like, I'm trying to acknowledge this, so then everything I'm able to do under that is therefore a privilege. And that's just really not true. Sorry, I'm going around in circles. She also asked if it's not a privilege what is it? If homeschooling isn't a privilege, what is it? It's a choice. Period. Yeah. It's a choice that we make. It's a choice that you can make if you have the money to buy the expensive Lego set for science that you talked about in your video. And it's a choice that you make if the most that you can get is a library card, which is free. Your financial situation does not dictate your ability to homeschool. It does not dictate the quality of your homeschool. Your financial situation might be a privilege. Also, it might not be a privilege. It depends. Did you earn it or was it handed to you? If it's available through your effort to go to college and pay for your own school and work hard to get the job that you wanted and save your money and spend wisely, and you finally gotten yourself in a position where you look like you're, financially stable and content, that's not a privilege. You earned it. By definition, if you earned it, it's not a privilege. They cancel each other out. Is anybody hearing this? Is it just me that is, sorry. See, now I'm getting passionate about it. Now, are there pieces of this that I could look at differently, that maybe I would change my mind if I had more information? Maybe. I'm open to a discussion, and as a part of being open to a discussion, I'm always open to new information, and when I receive new information, I evaluate my choices. That's just, to me, that's part of being a reasonable human being. So, can I change my mind? Yes. At this current moment in time, based on what I know and the information I have, am I interested in agreeing with, I guess, the other party or the other parties on this particular topic? No, because the information I have points to a different conclusion. I think that it actually dismisses people, and I think that it discourages people from homeschooling when we talk about it being a privilege. When we put it in this frame that, oh, you have to be privileged in order to do this, then we're really missing an opportunity to share this with everyone, because it is available to everyone. And, she did say, she's like, if you ... fall into such and such a category, then just don't homeschool. And I touched on that earlier, and I'm just gonna say, no. Like, we don't get to tell you what to do. This is a right that each person has to make. If a person is saying, I'm gonna risk being housing insecure, I can't afford to pay my rent anymore, so I'm gonna have to move in with a family member, and we can't afford to eat whatever we want at the store, so we have food, but it's just gonna be bare bones food, and we're just gonna eat what we need nutritionally to just have what we need and nothing more. Or maybe we're going to ask for federal assistance to help us get food because we're food insecure, but I'm making sure my children are eating. But I'm willing to make that sacrifice to keep from sending my child to a school that is so violent that they are scared for their life. Who am I to criticize that person for making that choice? I don't know what situation they're in. Now, is that an extreme example? Yes, it is, because sometimes that helps draw the brightest picture, right? But it doesn't matter whether the example is extreme or whether it's more bland, less specific. Guys, the words. It doesn't matter. The point is, I don't get to tell people what they need to do. They get to make their own choices. But the fact that it is a choice that can be made by anyone within the United States of America, we're talking about that bubble, means it is not a privilege. Now, Shanna talked about over and over again. She's like, I know I'm going to make people mad, and I know people are going to blow up my comments and this, that, and the other thing. I looked at her comments and everyone was pretty much in support of what she's saying, which is fine. So I suspect that if that's what the secular homeschooling community is leaning towards, I might actually make some people mad. And if that's what I did and I made you mad, I'm sorry. I don't know if sorry is the right word, but I guess it wasn't my intention to make you angry. I'm just talking about something. Maybe take a breath, have a cup of tea, talk to a friend, be passionate about it. Drop a comment, drop a passionate comment about it. Go back to Shanna's video and tell her about the horrible video that you saw. She knows I'm making this and I'll tell her, hi Shanna. But don't be angry. These aren't things worth being angry over. Just let's talk about it. Because when we stop talking, that's when violence starts happening. And this is true. As homeschoolers, as a homeschooler, one of the most important things that I think it's important for me to share with my children and for them to learn is the importance of that, about open communication, conversation, addressing difficult topics, and choosing your anger. Because being angry in this situation doesn't help anyone. So let's just see where it lands. I think that's all I have for you guys today. I really hope that I don't turn this off, look at my notes and be like, oh, I forgot that one point, which I'm sure that I did. But c'est la vie. This is what we have. I have, oh, if you can see it, an adorable kitten on my lap. So life is good. I have a cup of coffee, water, coffee, and I will catch you next time.